stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kurt Angle, yeah. Why, Triple H, you son of a I tell me why. And Tony Khan, this is also on you.
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over it.
What in the world happened in Chicago? Like, I'm genuinely asking you guys this question. What happened in Chicago? I'll tell you what happened. ajlee happened. ajlee has returned to wrestling after 10 years. 10 years. Now, if you look at CM Punk was out of wrestling for 7 years. From 2014 to 2021. Those were the years. Those were 7 years that CM Punk was out of wrestling. ajlee left wrestling in March of 2015. Her last match, if you want to take things into perspective, her last match was in a 6-woman tag team match on the March 30th, 2015 episode of Raw. This was on the Raw after WrestleMania 31. And keep in mind, the women's revolution on the main roster happened only a couple of months later when ajlee was out of WWE at this point. Now, I'm going to say this right here and right now. Everybody talks about the women's evolution and the women's revolution back in 2015, in the summer of 2015, where we saw Sasha Banks and Bayley. I mean, the women were tearing it up in NXT at a time where the women were just being booked horribly on the main roster. But everybody talks about also the knockouts back in the late 2000s with TNA. I've always thought that was the real women's revolution. But if you look at the TNA knockouts during the peak of the TNA knockouts, everybody talks about how the knockouts were the highest rated part of Impact when Impact was on Spike back in the day. What's crazy about the whole women's revolution is that I feel like ajlee was a true pioneer of women's wrestling. Yeah, everybody talks about the Trish Stratuses, everybody talks about the Litas. They are definitely in the conversation, and I'm not excluding them from that conversation. But if you look at how the women were booked in the WWE in the late 2000s and the early 2010s, dude, it was a struggle. Like, it got to the point where it was literally change the channel television. It was that bad. But ajlee actually made you want to watch. And she was one of the, in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of the Divas division when the women were deemed as divas instead of just women's wrestlers. ajlee was literally like the only interesting part of the entire women's division during that period of time. If you want to take things into perspective, she was one of the longest, at the time, the longest reigning Divas champion in history. That honor now goes to Nikki Bella. A lot of people have their own opinions on Nikki Bella. I mean, for God's sakes, they had the worst match. Her and Becky Lynch had the worst match on Clash in Paris. They literally had the worst match at Clash in Paris. But that's besides the point. ajlee is back in wrestling after 10 long years. Her hiatus from wrestling was way longer than CM Punk's. CM Punk's was 7, ajlee was 10. 10 years. And it's crazy. 2015 just does not feel like 10 years ago. 2015 just does not feel like 10 years ago at all. It just doesn't. But it was 10 years ago. Her last match, as I stated earlier, was in a 6-woman tag team match on the March 30th, 2015 episode of Raw. She teamed up with Paige and Naomi to take on the Bella Twins and Natalya. And again, this was on the Raw after WrestleMania 31. ajlee's return, at the end of the day, broke the internet. It broke the internet, and it sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling world. Everybody was talking about the return of ajlee. And on top of things, I will say this right here and right now. Her return to wrestling felt almost identical to CM Punk's return to wrestling. And I'm not saying that because AJ Lee is married to CM Punk. I'm saying that because it just felt that way. It felt very similar to the first dance. Because if you guys remember, it was already speculated that AEW had signed CM Punk in the summer of 2021. Then, of course, AEW announced the United Center. On the second ever episode of Rampage, this is only on the second ever episode of Rampage. And that show sold out instantly. It sold out instantly based off of a rumor that CM Punk was going to show up. A rumor. It was not even an announcement. It was a rumor. AJ Lee, I mean, granted, they had announced this SmackDown show. WWE always announce their venues and dates and, where they're going to go in advance, like months in advance. But this show, them being in Chicago, especially after the angle that went down at Clash in Paris, you already knew what was going to go down. It was this whole return was very similar to the first dance in a sense that you knew it was going to happen, but it wasn't announced. You knew AJ Lee was going to return to WWE. WWE was putting out teases and teases and teases left and right without actually telling you that AJ Lee was going to come back. Well, what happened? WWE delivered on their promise, and AJ Lee has officially made her return to World Wrestling Entertainment this past Friday on SmackDown. A SmackDown, by the way, which was by far the best SmackDown of the entire year. Yes, it was the best SmackDown of the entire year. And this is coming from somebody that, being myself, that hasn't watched SmackDown throughout the past month. I'm going to be honest, man. SmackDown has been a dreadful show. Like, it's gotten to the point where it's worse than Dynamite. And look, I've actually been enjoying Dynamite a little more often in 2025. Compared to last year, my interest in AEW was at an all-time low. I don't want to say my interest in AEW now is at an all-time high, but I mean, my interest when it comes to SmackDown as a show for SmackDown and on the WWE side of things, like SmackDown as a show has sucked. Like it's been bad. There's just nothing important on the show. Like if you look at the women's scene on Raw compared to the women's scene on SmackDown, it's like night and day. Like I'm a big fan of Tiffany Stratton, and even though she's the champion, she doesn't have a lot of credible challengers. Meanwhile, you look at on the Raw side of things, I mean, bro, we're going to be getting at WrestlePalooza Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky for the women's world title at WrestlePalooza. Like, dude, the Raw side of things when it comes to the women's division is 10 times better than SmackDown. SmackDown, I don't know what the hell am I watching. But why do I mention SmackDown now? SmackDown, the SmackDown that we saw this past Friday was by far the best SmackDown of the entire year. The best SmackDown of the entire year. Because we not only got the return of AJ Lee, but we also got John Cena versus Sami Zayn. And that literally opened up SmackDown. SmackDown opened up with John Cena and him cutting his promo. And I'm going to say this right here and right now. These last couple of months, and ever since John Cena turned babyface, I mean, my interest in John Cena has just been at an all-time high. Now, ever since he turned heel, of course, everybody's attention was on John Cena, but hindsight is 2020. His heel run has been pretty dreadful, and it's been pretty forgettable. I feel like WWE turned John Cena heel simply because of the shock factor, and the payoff just did not make any sense whatsoever. It was terrible. Now, granted, it's not like we didn't get anything good out of it. We got some good things out of it. We got the CM Punk and John Cena match at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia. The build-up to that match was off the charts. It was fantastic. And also, we got the Cody Rhodes match at SummerSlam, which I had the privilege of being in attendance for that match. I was at both nights of SummerSlam. It was amazing. It was amazing. The match itself was fantastic. And then, of course, it led to the return of Brock Lesnar. Now, keep in mind, we didn't see Brock Lesnar in WWE for almost a whole month after SummerSlam. He made his return this past Friday on SmackDown and unfortunately ended a phenomenal match between John Cena and Sami Zayn. And why did they book John Cena versus Sami Zayn? Well, You guys remember the John Cena Open Challenge 10 years ago when he was the U.S. champion? One of his challengers were Sami Zayn. And I'm not talking about long-haired Sami Zayn. I'm talking about short-haired Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, the Sami Zayn that was tearing it up in NXT. That's Sami Zayn. Well, they had a phenomenal match then, and they had a phenomenal match this past Friday. But we had a lot of things happen. Of course, the talk of the town has been ajlee, but we're also going to be talking about AEW on this show. AEW, of course, as you guys all know, is going head-to-head with WWE's first PLE on ESPN September 20th. And from what it looks like, AEW is no longer going head-to-head with them, considering they moved up their start time from 8 p.m. to 3 p.m. And I'm going to tell you guys why that is a good thing on this edition of the podcast. We're also going to be talking about HBO Max. AEW pay-per-views are now on HBO Max, but at the end of the day, a lot of fans are disappointed. A lot of fans are disappointed because they're upset that you still have to pay for the pay-per-view. You not only have to pay a certain price for HBO Max, but you also have to pay for the pay-per-view itself at a slightly discounted price of $40. But we're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to be talking about AJ Styles. And for giggles, we're going to be talking about the announcement that made everybody laugh. And this is not even something wrestling related, but we're going to be talking about it. If you guys don't know, they announced Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather for the spring of 2026. Yes, you heard me. Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather Jr. set for 2026. What the hell is going on? In 2026, you thought the fight with Logan Paul, not the fight with Logan Paul. I mean, Floyd did fight Logan Paul, but you thought the fight last year with Mike Tyson and Jake Paul was hilarious. I mean, we're going to be laughing in 2026 when we watch Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather, but we're going to be talking about that on this edition of the WrestleHavoc Podcast as well. Look, I'm no boxing enthusiast, but I just had to talk about it because this is just hilarious at this point. But we got a lot of things. This is a stacked episode of today's podcast. It is Sunday, September 7th, 2025. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this edition of the podcast. Before we get into all this craziness, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, if you guys are watching on WNN platforms, whether that is on the Facebook page or YouTube channel, I thank you guys so much for watching me on those platforms as well. But without any further ado, let's get straight into talking about what went down in pro wrestling this past week. Well, we're going to start off by talking about ajlee because she is the talk of the town. As you guys all know, ajlee has made her return to World Wrestling Entertainment after 10 long years. 10 long years. Again, this is the third time I stated it, but her last match, her last appearance was on March 30th, 2015 on the Raw after WrestleMania 31. And that was in a tag team match with her, Paige, and Naomi taking on the Bell Twins and Natalya. Again, and I talked about this on the top of the show, ajlee's return was arguably the worst, and I mean the worst kept secret in all of wrestling. It was literally the worst kept secret. It was the worst kept secret to the point where it was actually leaked that she was going to come back. Like, it was leaked, according to WWE Shop. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, well, the WWE Shop Twitter account kind of replied to a fan about ajlee and her return. I assume that person is no longer working for WWE. But ajlee, of course, we had the match at Clash in Paris, and CM Punk was set to win the world title, but what happened? Becky Lynch, somebody in a masked figure showed up and ended up being Becky Lynch. She ended up costing CM Punk the World Heavyweight Championship, which led to Seth Rollins to retain his belt. And then that already set the stage for what was about to go down. But then on the Raw after Clash in Paris, CM Punk and Becky Lynch had a segment. And this segment, I might add, was fantastic. One of the best segments of the entire year. And CM Punk is no stranger to bad segments, by the way. And he always delivers 110%. Becky Lynch, man. Becky Lynch was playing CM Punk like a fiddle. She was slapping CM Punk left and right. I mean, it was crazy to me. It was crazy. But CM Punk kept his cool, but he stated that he had a surprise for Friday. And of course, Friday was the SmackDown in Chicago. Now, I will say this, man. After that segment, I think it was pretty much set in stone that AJ was going to return to WWE. It was 100% set in stone that she was going to return to WWE. There was no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, SmackDown came along, and number one, WWE made you wait until the end of the show. It's a smart television tactic. It's not like AEW where they thrust the big thing in the beginning of the show, like what they did with CM Punk. Now, granted, it was smart that they put CM Punk in the beginning of the show because they literally gave him all the time in the world to speak his mind. And after being gone from wrestling for 7 years, I mean, of course, it made total sense for them to do that. But with AJ Lee, they waited until the end of the show because, again, the anticipation was there. The anticipation was there. And the funny thing is that Seth Rollins was in the crowd. He literally was in the crowd. He made his entrance through the crowd in Chicago. This is one of the most hated men in Chicago, and he makes his entrance through the crowd. Hilarious. And he stayed in the crowd. Then all of a sudden, Becky Lynch comes out, CM Punk comes out, and Becky Lynch essentially does the same thing that she did to CM Punk on Monday. And what happened after that was Punk told Becky, this is exactly the situation I wanted to avoid. Because you know, and I know, and everyone knows, I would never put my hands on a lady. Thankfully, I got somebody who will. And then whose music played? AJ Lee's music played. AJ Lee's music played. It was insane. AJ Lee comes out and the entire crowd in Chicago just went absolutely ballistic. They went absolutely ballistic for this woman. Absolutely ballistic for this woman. She comes out. She does the slow walk to the ring. She finally gets in the ring. And she beats down Becky Lynch. And Becky Lynch was just shocked. Seth Rollins was shocked. And Seth Rollins was in the crowd. And he does nothing to help his wife. And then we got... Now, it's no secret. CM Punk and AJ Lee are both married. But both of them hugged it out in the middle of the ring. And it was an amazing moment. But at the same time, it was also an emotional moment. Husband and wife hugging it out in the middle of the ring. Punk came back to wrestling in 2021, returned to WWE in 2023. AJ Lee makes her return to wrestling after 10 long years. And CM Punk, man, the smile, the look on the face of CM Punk when she came back, when she came out of that stage, the look on CM Punk's face said it all. Like, he was so happy to see his wife. So happy. It was insane. It was crazy. And it literally broke the internet. It broke the internet like in levels that I just wouldn't even understand. It broke the internet. WWE literally broke the internet. And they're setting records right now on social media because of AJ Lee's return. Now, we have details regarding her WWE contract. Well, she's of course been away for 10 years. Triple H posted on Twitter a video of AJ Lee signing her contract with World Wrestling Entertainment. And according to bodyslam.net, we have details on AJ Lee's new deal. AJ Lee, according to bodyslam.net, has signed a multi-year full-time contract with WWE. This isn't a one-off cameo or a nostalgia pop, Bodyslam said in its report. AJ's back for real, and she's ready to shake up the women's division all over again. So one of the questions, because again, this whole week, everybody knew that AJ Lee was going to come back. Like, everybody knew she was going to come back. Well, everybody was curious as to whether or not she was going to return just in a one-off appearance, you know, have her wrestle the tag team match at WrestlePalooza and then call it a career. But no, she has signed a multi-year deal with WWE. Keep in mind, she's only 38 years old. She's only 38 years old. And honestly, right now for her to sign that multi-year deal, I mean, she's going to do a lot of good things for the women's division. A lot of good things with the women's division. I mean, it literally just made the women's division 10 times more interesting, especially now. It literally made the women's division 10 times more interesting. And I'm here for it. The fact that AJ Lee has signed a multi-year deal with WWE and is going to be around for the foreseeable future puts a smile on my face. It literally puts a smile on my face. Now, keep in mind, think about this. AJ Lee's married to CM Punk, and a lot of people were talking about how this literally could have been AEW. I agree. AEW literally could have had this moment if it was a couple of years ago. They literally could have had this moment a couple of years ago, but they didn't. Again, it all depends on what AJ Lee wanted to do, but CM Punk was already back and he was back in AEW. But we all know how that relationship ended. It ended very poorly. Very poorly. But at the end of the day, AJ Lee's back. And from what it looks like, she's going to be back in WWE. She signed a multi-year deal with the company. And from what it looks like, they're going to be setting up a tag team match at WrestlePalooza, the first WWE PLE on ESPN, with her and her husband CM Punk taking on Becky Lynch and her husband Seth Rollins. And I'm here for it. Now, the match hasn't been officially announced, but as you guys all know, once something happens and goes down, essentially it was not an official announcement, but it was an announcement that match is definitely going to happen. And ironically, AEW moved their start time for All Out from 8 p.m. to 3 p.m. And I'll talk about AEW later on. But there's so many different possibilities when it comes to AJ Lee's return, man. We're not only going to get that tag team match, but the possibilities of her, you know, feuding with a lot of people are endless. There's people like Rhea Ripley, Bayley, Io Sky, Roxanne Perez, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair. There's so many women right now that AJ Lee is able to have programs with. I mean, like, again, the possibilities are endless. I would love to see a match between AJ Lee and Stephanie Vaquer. Like, that's like one of the top matches that I really want to see with AJ Lee. Her versus Roxanne Perez. Io Sky versus AJ Lee. People need to understand. If you guys looked at AJ Lee and you guys are looking at this photo right now, AJ Lee is shredded. Like, dude, she's in the best possible shape of her career. She's in the best shape of her career. End off. She's in the best shape of her career. And there's videos of her, at least from a couple of years ago, training with CM Punk in the ring. So, I mean, AJ Lee, from what it looks like, she hasn't lost her step at all. There's so many possible matchups for AJ Lee. Hell, we could see a AJ Lee versus Tiffany Stratton match. Again, the possibilities are endless. The possibilities are endless. This definitely 100% shook up the women's division. And now every time AJ Lee is going to show up on WWE TV, it's going to be must-see TV. Just like CM Punk showing up every week on a Raw or a SmackDown is must-see TV, the same is going to be it's going to be the same with AJ Lee. Because again, AJ Lee has been gone for 10 years. AJ Lee has been gone for 10 years. Everybody missed AJ Lee. Everybody missed AJ Lee. Well, now we get to see AJ Lee from what it looks like on a weekly basis. Or at least in most weeks. But I'm 100% excited to see what they do with the AJ Lee, man. But again, we're going to be getting the presumed tag team match. They haven't officially announced it, but we're going to be getting the presumed tag team match with CM Punk and AJ Lee versus Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. Now imagine, just for giggles, Imagine if AJ Lee didn't return to WWE this past Friday. Imagine if they brought out somebody like maybe a Rhea Ripley. That would have been hilarious. That would have been hilarious because, again, like the crowd in Chicago would have just rioted. But that did not happen. They actually stuck to their guns and actually brought out AJ Lee because WWE knew that was the only way to make this interesting. The only way to... Now, I'm not saying that this whole thing was not interesting, but in my opinion, I think the addition of Becky Lynch has been fantastic. It gives something for Becky Lynch to do. And not only that, it gives her the opportunity to work with her husband. So, in my opinion, there's really nothing wrong with Becky Lynch being a part of the vision. But, man, AJ Lee's... This leading to the return of AJ Lee was a phenomenal moment. And again, a moment that broke the internet and something that people will be talking about for years and years to come. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's true. It is true. All right, moving on with the WrestleHavoc podcast, we are going to be talking about AJ Styles. Yes, AJ Styles has been in the news, and everybody has been talking about, AJ Styles' career as a pro wrestler. Of course, AJ Styles, if you guys don't know, went to social media and he posted this hourglass image on his Instagram. And a lot of people are speculating whether or not these are at least signs of him possibly thinking about retirement. Now, what's ironic is that Karrion Kross wrote a reply to AJ Styles on his Instagram post, and he stated this, and I quote, "Uncle Alan, I will turn that hourglass upside down. Don't you dare leave us." And that was, of course, written by Killer Kross. Not Karrion Kross, Killer Kross. Of course, Kross right now, from what it looks like, is a free agent. I'm reading this from The Takedown on SI, aka Sports Illustrated. AJ Styles' contract for WWE was originally set to expire earlier this year, but after the foot injury last October kept him on the sidelines for months, AJ agreed to a one-year extension with the company. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select has now been able to pinpoint an approximate expiration date for that extension. Sean Ross Sapp stated this, and I quote, "Sources close to AJ Styles has indicated that his deal is up around February of 2026, which would have him expiring after the Royal Rumble and before WrestleMania season. We're told that WWE does not have hope to retain him after that period, or does hope to retain him after that period, but will evaluate things and his interest. For what it's worth, Styles looks to have plenty left in the tank. He's in phenomenal shape, no pun intended, but his in-ring work has not fallen off in the slightest. AJ has been chasing Dominic Mysterio and the IC title for months, and that rivalry is expected to continue after El Grande Americano cost him the title this past Monday on Raw." What are my thoughts on AJ Styles, man? There was a lot of talk about AJ Styles and where he might end up or where he might go. A lot of fans on social media want him to go straight to AEW. People need to understand, I believe AJ Styles is 50 years old? He's 50. But he looks in, again, no pun intended, as the report stated, he looks in phenomenal shape. He's probably in the best shape of his entire career. But a lot of people are saying that AJ Styles, man, once your contract is up, go to AEW. AEW would be possibly the best fit for AJ Styles if it was 10 years ago. You have to understand, you got to put yourself in the shoes of AJ Styles. Your career is winding down, and you're probably starting to think about retiring. What does AJ Styles, put yourself in the shoes of AJ Styles. What do you want to do if you're AJ Styles? Do you want to go to AEW? Because there's one thing. If AJ Styles ended up going to AEW, the number one thing, of course, that I would love to see is a Will Ospreay versus AJ Styles match. I would love to see that. But that's all I want to see from AJ Styles in AEW if he ever went to AEW. I don't think AJ Styles at this stage of his career wants to go to AEW. That's just my opinion. Because he's developed... He's made a lot of friends in WWE. Not only that, he's developed a really close relationship with WWE. You know what I'm saying? He has a lot of great people that he works with in WWE. I mean, it all depends on what AJ Styles wants to do. AJ Styles does what AJ Styles wants to do. And he's earned the right for that. He's earned the right to do that. He's earned the right to do that because, again, he's AJ Styles. And he's worked his ass off. Before getting into WWE, he's worked his ass off for like 15 years, 15, 16 years to get to WWE. AJ Styles deserves all the money that he's going to get. I would not be surprised if WWE would re-sign him to a new deal, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens. From what it looks like, his contract is going to be up roughly after the Royal Rumble next year, which is going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. But this is going to be this is definitely going to be a big topic of discussion once we get to February of 2026. All right, moving on. Moving on with the WrestleHavoc podcast, we are going to be talking about AEW. As you guys all know, WWE keeps counter-programming AEW, which is crazy to think because, again, WWE is the industry leader, but they want all the headlines. They really want all the headlines. And, of course, this past week, AEW All Out, or in the beginning of this week, it was originally going to be AEW All Out going head-to-head with WWE's WrestlePalooza. WrestlePalooza was a show that was announced like 2 weeks ago. It was never in the pay-per-view slate for WWE or the PLE slate for WWE in 2025. It was a show that was kind of put together last minute. And they wanted to start that ESPN deal early, so they want their money now. So what happens? AEW announced All Out a couple of months back. And, of course, that show is going to be taking place September 20th. WrestlePalooza is going to be the first WWE PLE to take place on the new ESPN DTC, the direct-to-consumer service. And you're going to have to pay $30 a month for this streaming service. And I talked about how this is actually a good deal because if you have cable, you don't have to pay those $30. You essentially get it for free. You're not paying the $30 just for the WWE PLE. You're paying $30 a month for the ESPN direct-to-consumer streaming service. Well, ESPN is not going to be, or September 20th is not going to be the first show, not only on the ESPN DTC, but also September 20th is going to mark the date on the first AEW pay-per-view on HBO Max. If you guys do not know, beginning Friday, September 5th, HBO Max subscribers in the United States can pre-order AEW All Out for $39.99. It's the first ever pay-per-view event to be offered on HBO Max. In a press release stated by AEW, Warner Brothers Discovery, HBO Max, and All Elite Wrestling Today announced a groundbreaking expansion of their nearly 6-year relationship with the launch of AEW pay-per-view events on HBO Max, starting with All Out on Saturday, September 20th at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about that as we get along from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. HBO Max will stream live AEW pay-per-view events without ads, with all marketing and promotions of AEW pay-per-view events primarily centered on HBO Max. Pre-orders for AEW All Out on HBO Max will launch this Friday, September 5th, allowing U.S. HBO Max subscribers with supported devices to purchase the event for the exclusive price of $39.99, a $10 difference from the $50 price point that you were originally paying for if you were going to buy on payperview.com or on YouTube or on Amazon Prime. Fans streaming AEW All Out on HBO Max can enjoy this event in HDR10 and Dolby Atmos, delivering stunning picture quality and immersive arena-like sound that puts fans at the center of the action. Purchase and access to pay-per-view content may vary by subscription provider. HBO Max users with a base subscription and supported device can log in to purchase the event, which will be highlighted throughout the app or found in search, and then they continue on to talk about HBO Max. Okay, what are my thoughts on this? A lot of people are disappointed with this. A part of me is kind of disappointed with this, but I mean, what can you do? I mean, AEW, of course, is going to charge you, even though it's a $10 difference, they're still going to lose money on it, considering, again, they're losing $10 per purchase for this pay-per-view. Now, I believe you are still able to buy these AEW pay-per-views on other platforms. I don't know if this is an exclusive deal. Does it say over here it's an exclusive deal? I don't know. I don't think it's an exclusive deal. But as of right now, you can pre-order the event on HBO Max, but as of right now, before the HBO Max thing, you were able to purchase an AEW pay-per-view on Amazon Prime Video. You were able to purchase on payperview.com, Triller, or on YouTube, which I've been doing throughout like the past year and a half. I've been ordering my pay-per-views via YouTube because, the way YouTube is set up, it's just so simple. It's very, very simple. And before YouTube, of course, I ordered through Bleacher Report. What are my thoughts on this? This deal is very similar to what the ESPN Plus and UFC deal was, in a sense that you have to pay for the streaming service, but you also have to pay for the pay-per-view itself. It's very similar to what the UFC does with ESPN Plus, because you got to pay a certain price for ESPN per month, but also you got to pay the $80 for the UFC pay-per-view. Now, with this new UFC Paramount deal, that is no longer going to be the case because you just purchase monthly Paramount Plus and you get everything. Everybody expected a similar deal like that for AEW. But I hate to break it to you, but that is not going to be the case. Why? You're paying, what is it? Like $11, $12 a month for HBO Max, depending on the tier that you have. But also, you're paying $40 instead of $50. It's not a big difference from the $50. Everybody expected it to be like $29.99. But from a logistical standpoint, there's probably a reason why they chose $39.99 instead of the $29.99. At the end of the day, people need to understand that this is a business and, things cost money. You don't just get them for free. I remember how a lot of people took for granted the WWE Network. A lot of people took for granted the WWE Network. And once the Peacock deal started, everybody was like, damn, I really missed the WWE Network. Well, now you're going to pay $30 per month for this new streaming service and you get your WWE PLE. Now, if you only watch WWE, you're going to have to pay those $30 a month. But I've always said, there's other outlets to watch. If you're so upset about this, just use a freaking VPN. You know what I did for All In? Instead of paying $50, I used a different VPN, and instead of paying $50, I paid $25. Use a VPN. I say this with the same people that are complaining about WWE and you having to purchase a PLE for $30 or purchasing for ESPN with you getting that PLE. Use a VPN. Use a VPN. That's all I say. Use a VPN. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are complaining about this, but at the end of the day, y'all need to understand that, again, this is a business. This is a business. And of course, AEW is going to go where the money's at. And look, if that's the furthest from a discount that they're able to offer, then fine, who cares? You're still going to watch anyway. I hate when these people always say, oh, I'm going to stop watching. No, you're not. You're going to continue watching because that's what you do. That you're the consumer. You're going to watch. But it is what it is. Hold on. Let me fix this light because my lighting just got messed up. There we go. My light was all mixed up. Sorry about that, guys. If you guys don't know, I have two lights over here and one light just went off. That's what happens when you film a podcast, especially a podcast via a camera. But where did I leave off? Again, people complaining about this $39.99. People are saying this is a disappointment. On one hand, I understand, but the people that are saying I'm no longer going to purchase an AEW pay-per-view, blah, 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 you're lying to yourself. You are absolutely lying to yourself because, again, you're going to watch regardless. And you're going to pay those dollars for that pay-per-view event. You just are. You just are. It is what it is. It is what it is. Is it disappointing? Yeah, but what can you do? AEW is a business, and they need to make money. People need to understand AEW is only a 6-year-old company. 6 years seems like a lot, and they've developed quite the tape library for themselves. But still, if you compare the connections that AEW has compared to WWE especially in the television industry. I'm not saying AEW does not have leverage, but WWE being the company that they are, being around for decades, they have more leverage. They have leverage similar to the UFC. They have leverage similar to the NFL. Why do you think they get deals like they do? Why do you guys think they get the deals that they do? Because again, they have leverage and they have name recognition. AEW, yes, they have name recognition, but they're not as big as WWE. They just aren't, and they never will be. That's just my opinion on the whole matter. But HBO Max is now finally in the pay-per-view game, and they're going to start streaming AEW pay-per-views. Now, what I'm very curious about are the pay-per-view buy rates. How many people are going to purchase on HBO Max? That is the big question that we all need to ask ourselves. You know, everybody talks about the ratings, and, you know, it's no secret that the ratings have gone down, but I'm not one to really enter in the ratings discourse because I think the ratings discourse is so, how do I say it, so outdated, but also at the same time, the ratings discourse is so stupid. Like, I'm not going to hate on a show just because it does low ratings. I'm telling you guys, I mean, wrestling fans, I need to tell you guys this right here and right now. Wrestling fans are the stupidest bunch of fans you'll ever see. You know, any fan base has like its toxic fans, but wrestling takes the cake. You will have wrestling fans not watch a show because it does low ratings. I'm being serious. You will find wrestling fans that will not watch a show just because it does low ratings. It's funny how everybody talks about low ratings, this, low ratings. I mean, Dynamite this past Wednesday drew its lowest rating ever, roughly around 400,000 viewers, which I'm going to say this right here and right now. That is kind of an embarrassing number, a really bad number. I'm not going to lie. That's a pretty bad number. But everybody talks about the ratings, but nobody talks about their pay-per-view buy rates. You know what I'm saying? Their buy rates are fairly consistent. They do 100,000 and like 125, 130,000 buys per show. That's fairly consistent, and that is not bad. That is not bad whatsoever. It really isn't. It's really not that bad. That's what people need to understand. Could they grow that pay-per-view audience? Yes. Do I expect them to grow that pay-per-view audience, especially now that they're on HBO Max? We're going to have to wait and see. I doubt it. But with the promotion, which I assume there's going to be promotion for these AEW pay-per-views on HBO Max, we're going to have to wait and see what goes down. We're going to have to wait and see what goes down. But as of right now, AEW pay-per-views, you're able to purchase these AEW pay-per-views on HBO Max. The first pay-per-view is going to be, of course, All Out on September 20th. Ironically, on that same day, September 20th, we're going to have the first AEW pay-per-view on HBO Max, but we're also going to have the first WWE PLE on the HBO, or not the HBO, the ESPN direct-to-consumer streaming service. So it's going to be very interesting to see what goes down. But when it comes to All Out, well, a very interesting news came out, or I don't want to say interesting news, but as you guys all know, as you guys heard me read the press release, well, All Out is no longer going head-to-head with WrestlePalooza. All Out is no longer going head-to-head with WrestlePalooza as they moved start times from 8 p.m. to 3 p.m. Now, All Out is going to be an afternoon pay-per-view. It's very telling. It's very telling by AEW. But I'm going to sit here and say that this is actually not a bad thing. I know a lot of people are going to say otherwise, saying AEW backed out, WWE made them move, ha ha ha. They backed out of the whole situation. But you got to understand, if you're somebody like me or any other fans that watch both products, this sucks for you. This sucks for you if both shows go on head-to-head because it forces you to choose what show you want to watch. It forces you to choose. Oh, but you could just watch it the day after. Well, I'm going to get spoiled. I'm going to get spoiled on social media. You know, watching a pro wrestling show live is a very different experience than watching it when everybody else already watched it. I think this is not a bad move. And also, if All Out went head-to-head with WrestlePalooza, I'm going to be honest, it is a losing battle for AEW, regardless of how many times they would no-sell WWE. Because keep in mind, one of the things that AEW has done tremendously well this year is them no-selling WWE. I feel like they've been doing that recently. They've been no-selling WWE, and I'm going to be honest, it has worked in their favor. Because the moment you no-sell WWE, WWE is just going to keep doing what you're doing, and it's going to cause the people that are watching the WWE show looking at what's happening, being like, hey, what's this other show going on? You know what I'm saying? But AEW has done a great job at no-selling WWE. People are saying that, oh my God, WWE caused AEW to move shows. But if you're AEW, it is possibly the smartest move that you could make. It is the smartest move that you're able to make. I'm going to be honest. It really is. Why do I say that? Because you cannot compete with John Cena versus Brock Lesnar, and you cannot compete with ajlee's first match in 10 years. You just can't compete with that. And if you're AEW, you realize that. You just cannot compete with that, because if you go head-to-head with WWE, it's a losing battle. You're going to lose people to your show because you probably have fans that also watch the WWE product that are going to be like, hey, what's going on with AJ Lee? I want to watch AJ Lee. I'm a fan of AJ Lee. I want to see what goes down. You know, I've stated before that AEW fans will not watch the WWE product, and that can be very true. But come on. You didn't think when CM Punk was in AEW at that period of time, they wanted to see AJ Lee in an AEW ring? Come on. Everybody's wanted to see that. We're going to be seeing the return of AJ Lee. And if both shows are going on head-to-head, what show are you going to be watching? Are you going to be watching All Out? No matter how good All Out is, and it probably will be an amazing show, all the attention is not going to be geared towards All Out. All the attention is going to be on WrestlePalooza. And with ESPN being behind them, ESPN is going to promote the hell out of that show. ESPN is a promotional machine. That's what people need to understand. ESPN is a promotional machine. If you have a deal with ESPN, ESPN is going to promote the living hell out of you. And ESPN is going to promote the living hell out of WWE. They just are. If AEW had gone head-to-head with WWE September 20th, they would have lost that battle. It would have been a losing battle for them. Because nobody would care what would be going on in the AEW show. Just nobody would care. At least with AEW moving their show from 8 p.m. to 3 p.m., it no longer forces fans to choose, and fans are able to watch the AEW pay-per-view and then shift over to the WWE show. It's a win-win if you're the fan. It's a win-win if you're the fan. And if AEW wants to be smart about it, they could have the show go on long and have it overlap and have some sort of big moment happen at All Out right as soon as WrestlePalooza is about to begin. Like, imagine if the main event goes down, and from what it looks like, the main event is going to be Hangman Page versus Kyle Fletcher, or at least one of the matches that's going to be taking place. I don't know if that's going to be the actual main event, because, of course, in Forbidden Door, we had the Cage of Death match, or the Lights Out Steel Cage, whatever. But still, I mean, what if they had like a Karrion Kross show up at the end of that AEW pay-per-view? And it's happening at the same time where the WrestlePalooza show is just starting out. A lot of people are going to be talking about Karrion Kross or Killer Kross. You know what I'm saying? That's just me, though. That's just what I think. But again, AEW moving from 8 p.m. to 3 p.m. is not a bad thing. And look, AEW in interviews, and Tony Khan flat out stated that they have been successful when it comes to pay-per-views in the afternoon. And look, he's right when he says that. But I mean, when it comes to All Out moving time slots, I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, there's only one big elephant in the room as to why that is happening. And that is because WWE has a show going on. You know what I'm saying? And this is not a new thing in wrestling. I mean, this is a thing that has happened with boxing and MMA as well, in which, you know, you'd have a big UFC fight happening, but there'd also be like a boxing main event that would happen like across the street, and fans who attended both shows, so like they want to leave the UFC as soon as possible so they can go watch that boxing pay-per-view, or vice versa. Like, it's very similar in that sense. Very similar. But this is nothing but a win-win for the fans. It's really nothing but a win-win at the end of the day. So it's not a situation of AEW backing down. Like, look, AEW realized that they realized that they cannot compete with WWE. They realized that they cannot compete with WWE, at least with WrestlePalooza, because you cannot compete with AJ Lee's return to the ring. You just can't compete with that. Everybody's going to be watching that. Everybody's going to be watching that. That's just the harsh reality. And for the people complaining about, oh, Brock Lesnar, blah, blah, blah. Why is Brock Lesnar on the show? Bro, you're going to be watching that regardless. You're going to be watching it. You know what I'm saying? What's interesting is that Brian Alvarez made a great point when it comes to this whole situation. And he stated this, and I quote, "The day is going to come where WWE counter programs, AEW moves a show, and then WWE moves their show. It's going to happen at some point. They're going to screw with the guy because now they know this guy's going to blink and he's going to move his show." It's very interesting. I don't see them moving dates. Like, I don't see WWE moving their show after AEW would move theirs. I think it's kind of dumb on WWE's end if they do that, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But WWE, man, when it comes to WWE's counter programming, I don't like it. It is a competitive tactic. And I know this is probably in the minority, but I actually feel like this is actually going to hurt WWE more when they do this more often. Now, they can get away with it because they're the industry leader. But I feel like and we've seen this with All In. It's not a lot of people, but we've seen this with All In where people who haven't watched the AEW product at all wanted to know what all the fusses was about All In, and they actually thought the show was fantastic. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I could see that happening as well, but we're going to have to wait and see. I feel like the whole counter programming is actually hurting WWE more than it is AEW because it's actually giving AEW more attention. And what's crazy about this is that AEW is actually playing the safe route. They're actually playing the safe route, and they're actually the smart people on the block. And that says a lot because they weren't doing this a year or two ago. If this was 2 years ago, Tony Khan would have gone on Twitter and complained like crazy. But Tony Khan realizes, and this is how much Tony Khan has grown as a promoter. He has realized his place in the wrestling industry, and he realizes that WWE is going to do these types of tactics. And the best possible way to counter that is to just put on the best possible show you can and possibly maybe move your show around when you need to. He knows that he can compete with something, and he knows when he can't compete with something. And I think that's and the fact that AEW is no-selling WWE's counter-programming, I mean, you may say, oh, they're not no-selling because they moved their show. I mean, would you move your show? Because I would. But, like, they're playing the safe route, and it's actually working in AEW's favor, and I feel like they've been really professional about it. Tony Khan has been really professional about it, and that is something you can't take away from him. And you know what? It's a smart move. A smart move on AEW's end. All right, moving on. Moving on with the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Let's go real quick through the cards for both All Out and WrestlePalooza. When it comes to, let's start off with WrestlePalooza. Of course, WrestlePalooza is going to be taking place Saturday, September 20th. And the matches that are taking place right now that have been announced are Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky for the Women's World Championship. John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. Of course, that's probably going to be the main event. Either that's going to be the main event or the tag team match is going to be the main event. And it's not like officially announced, but we're going to be getting CM Punk and AJ Lee taking on Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. On the All Out side of things, we got Toni Storm versus Chris Statlander versus Jamie Hayter versus Tekla for the AEW Women's World title in a 4-way. Mercedes Moné versus Riho for the TBS title. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage take on FTR, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. MJF takes on Mark Briscoe, which Mark Briscoe will choose the stipulation. We got Ricochet, Toa Liona, and Bishop Khan taking on the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP. And then we got also Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in a coffin match. And from what it looks like, we're probably going to be getting Darby Allin going over in this match. And from what it looks like, Kyle Fletcher also challenged Hangman Page to the AEW World title this past Saturday on AEW Collision. And from what it looks like, we're going to be getting Kyle Fletcher versus Hangman Page for the AEW World Championship. So that is the lineup for AEW All Out. Overall, not a bad card. Not a bad card whatsoever. Hopefully the show's great. And yeah, that's just the All Out card for you guys. Moving on, and this is going to be our last topic for today. I wanted to say this. I want to talk about this for giggles. I'm going to say this right here and right now. I'm not really the biggest boxing fan, but I saw this week, and I just knew I had to talk about it. It has been confirmed, and this is according to Fight Sports, which ironically is going to be the people that, from what it looks like, are promoting this show. Or they were the people that announced this show, I should say. It has been confirmed that in the spring of 2026, Iron Mike Tyson will square off with Floyd Money Mayweather Jr. for 8 rounds of legendary boxing action. While the exact date and location of this bout is yet to be determined, all eyes will be on this mega event as 2 of the biggest names associated with professional boxing meet inside the squared circle. Mayweather and Tyson are unanimously the 2 biggest pay-per-view stars and revenue generators in combat sports history, which is true, but it's so funny how they added that there. And together, the pair will undoubtedly produce absolute fireworks in a fight that will be revered as one of the largest viewership in boxing. Wow. They didn't tell you that the fight was going to be good, but they told you that a lot of people are going to watch this event. Mayweather shattered revenue generating records first in 2015 with his match versus Manny Pacquiao, which archived over $400 million in pay-per-view revenue and $72 million in live ticket sales. They just had to throw that in there. They're like WWE. The 4.6 million pay-per-view buys is still a record in professional boxing to this day. Additionally, Mayweather produced extreme numbers once again in his crossover match with MMA star Conor McGregor with 4.3 million pay-per-view buys, the second most of all time, $600 million in total revenue, and $55 million in live gate revenue. Between those 2 bouts, Mayweather holds the record for the first and second highest grossing boxing events in history. Mike Tyson has produced insanely high pay-per-view numbers as well as in recent years, starting with his comeback bout versus Roy Jones Jr. in November of 2020. I remember that, by the way. The super fight gained the attention of the entire boxing world with over 1.6 million pay-per-view buys for their exhibition fight. Ranked within the top 10 most purchased combat sports events of all time, his follow-up performances versus social media influencer turned professional boxer Jake Paul drew over 108 million viewers worldwide, making the event the most streamed sporting event in history. Over 60 million households streamed the event on Netflix. Now, one thing I will say about the Jake Paul Mike Tyson, not fight, but show as a whole, I actually watched the whole show live. It was a great show. I mean, the Katie Taylor fight was the Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor fight was off the charts, and I believe they had a rematch a couple of months ago, and I believe the rematch was not really that good, but that match itself was like the Ricky Steamboat versus Macho Man of fights, because it was the fight that stole the show, but it wasn't the fight that people wanted to watch, because at the end of the day, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson was the fight that drew people in. But I mean, it was an exhibition fight, and let's be honest, like, you all knew that wasn't going to be like an amazing fight. Their event is being scheduled for spring of 2026, which is the best timing for both of their schedules. Tyson has been training since his fight with Jake Paul and is set to be in fighting shape for an 8 to 12 minute round fight. And there was a press release video, and yeah, we're going to be getting Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather. What the hell? I don't know what to say. I mean, there's no secret that everybody's going to be watching this. They're going to be everybody's going to be watching this, but at the end of the day, like, this is a joke. This really is a joke. If you really want to take things into consideration, this is a joke. Mike Tyson is like little over 60 years old. Floyd Mayweather is 48 years old. They shouldn't be fighting at their age, especially Mike Tyson. If you watched Mike Tyson and the Jake Paul fight, Mike Tyson was stumbling in his feet. He really was. And it made you real worried about Mike Tyson. In my opinion, this makes boxing look like a joke. It makes boxing look bad. And honestly, Dana White will have a field day with this because he's getting in the boxing game. And TKO's first boxing event, I believe, is going to be happening in a couple of days with Crawford and Canelo. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what goes down. Or, I mean, it's going to be a Riyadh season promoted fight, but like TKO Boxing is involved. It is a TKO Boxing promotion, by the way. I mean, like the whole TKO Boxing thing is like another can of worms that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people in the boxing industry are like afraid about that. Now, I'm not really the biggest boxing fan, but like, again, like, dude, I saw this week and I was like laughing my ass off because I'm like, why are we getting Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's because they're going to get a big payday. They're going to get a big payday. Why not? We're going to get people to watch anyway. Who cares if the fight is good or bad? We're going to get a big payday out of it. I don't know, man. It is what it is. A lot of people are going to be watching this fight regardless. That's just the truth. Everybody's going to be watching this, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. This was hilarious, and it was something that I just really wanted to talk about. But yeah, that was the WrestleHavoc podcast from Sunday, September 7th, 2025. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. I mean, look out for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc channel in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is yours truly, Flamin' Mercury DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace.